Earth has a heartbeat. Every 26 seconds, like clockwork, the entire planet shudders with a faint, rhythmic pulse. And after more than 6 decades of listening closely, not a single person on this earth can tell you why. It isn't an earthquake. It isn't a hurricane. It isn't a submarine, a missile test, a military experiment, or anything that human hands have ever constructed. It is a quiet, stubborn thump buried deep inside the seismic record of our world, ticking away beneath the noise of cities, oceans, and the slow grind of tectonic plates. And it has been ticking since long before.
And why, in an era when we can image individual atoms and detect gravitational waves from black holes colliding a billion light years away, can't we figure out what's happening right here in our own backyard? This is that story. The first person to catch the pulse was a geologist named Jack Oliver, working out of Columbia University's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory back in 1962. Oliver was a methodical man, the kind of scientist who trusted his instruments over his gut. He was sitting with towering stacks of seismograph readings, those long, curling paper printouts that capture the faintest tremors moving through the Earth's crust. He was hunting for patterns. What he found was one nobody had asked for. Buried in the background of his data, sitting beneath the noise of earthquakes, ocean storms, and the general restlessness of a living planet, there was a tiny, perfectly regular tick. It repeated every 26 seconds. It wasn't alarming. It wasn't dangerous. It was just there. Always there. Quietly hammering away at the bottom of every single record he pulled. Oliver traced the signal as best he could with the technology of the time and pointed it towards somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. He published his findings in 1962, flagged it as a curiosity. Then, in 2005, a graduate student named Greg Bensen at the University of Colorado accidentally yanked the 26-second pulse back into the spotlight while testing a brand new seismic analysis technique. There it was again, a rhythmic ghost humming through the data, sitting in exactly the same spot Oliver had identified more than 40 years earlier. The thing hadn't moved. It hadn't faded. It had just been waiting. Bensen's advisor, Mike Ritzwaller, looked at the readings and assumed there had to be an error. There wasn't. The team narrowed the source down with far greater precision than Oliver had managed. The pulse was coming from the Gulf of Guinea, a stretch of the Atlantic Ocean curling beneath the bulge of West Africa. More specifically, it was originating from a single point in the Bight of Bonny, off the coasts of Cameroon, Nigeria, and Equatorial Guinea. That was the first shock. The pulse wasn't wandering around the ocean the way a storm or a current would. It was broadcasting from one fixed location, the way you might expect a buried machine to behave. Or a heart. The second shock was the precision. 26 seconds, give or take a tiny fraction, year after year, decade after decade. Tides shift, storms disappear, earthquakes are random. Whatever this thing was, it had a pacemaker. The third shock was how far the signal traveled. The 26-second tick was being picked up on seismometers across. So what on earth could produce a steady tick from one fixed spot in the Atlantic, running longer than most countries have existed in their current form? That's where things get genuinely strange. The leading theory points to the ocean itself. When deep ocean waves slam into the continental shelf, they can deform the seafloor enough to send pressure waves rippling through the Earth's crust.
The Gulf of Guinea has a peculiar shape. It's a wide, shallow basin where the African coastline curves inward. If you've ever blown across the top of a glass bottle to make it whistle, you've experienced something similar. The Gulf of Guinea, according to this theory, might just be that bottle.
But it has serious problems. There are coastlines all over the planet that should produce similar effects. Why doesn't the Gulf of Mexico ring like a bell? Why doesn't the Bay of Bengal? For another thing, the pulse is consistent in a way ocean noise simply isn't. Storms come and go. If this heartbeat were driven by ocean swells, you'd expect the signal to rise and fall with the weather. It doesn't. Stable through hurricane season. Stable through the dead calm of summer doldrums. So if it isn't waves, what else? Enter the second major theory. A Chinese seismologist named Yingje Xia argued the pulse isn't an ocean phenomenon at all. They pointed to a volcano. There was an active volcanic complex on the island of São Tomé, sitting almost exactly where the seismic source has been triangulated. Xia's hypothesis was that the heartbeat is volcanic in origin.
The slow, rhythmic flexing of the ground around a magma chamber. Volcanoes do tick. Old Faithful up in Yellowstone runs on a similar principle. This theory explains the fixed location and the unusual stability. But it has problems too. The pulse gets detected on seismometers as far away as Madagascar. Volcanic microseisms typically stay local, and the rhythm is too clean for most known volcanic processes, which tend to sputter rather than tick like a clock. So we have two theories. Both are partly right, both are partly wrong. And meanwhile, the pulse just keeps ticking. The Earth is doing this right now, and nothing about your daily life would ever tell you. You walk on solid ground, drive on solid roads, sleep on a foundation of bedrock. And somewhere beneath the South Atlantic, a 26-second clock is keeping perfect time. There's something genuinely unsettling about that. We live in a moment where it sometimes feels like everything worth knowing has already been figured out. Then a graduate student stumbles across a 60-year-old signal and discovers that nobody has been able to crack it. Earth is not a solved problem. The deepest hole humanity has ever drilled reached just over 12 kilometers down. The Earth's center sits roughly 6,371 kilometers beneath the surface. We have scratched less than 1/5 of 1% of the way through our own planet. And every 26 seconds, the planet ticks. And we still don't know why. People hear about the 26-second tick, and they don't react the way scientists do. They call it a heartbeat. They picture the Earth as a living organism. Strictly speaking, that isn't science. But there is something genuinely fascinating in the human reflex to hear that signal and immediately reach for meaning. The pulse was thumping away beneath the Atlantic when Jack Oliver was born. It was thumping when Columbus crossed that ocean. It was thumping when the pyramids were going up in Egypt. We don't know how old it truly is. We only know how long we have been listening. Somewhere beneath the waves, the Earth has been keeping a steady beat for at least as long as recorded human history. And it will keep ticking long after every single person watching this is gone. After the cities are swallowed. After the languages we speak today have changed past recognition. The pulse will continue. For now, we keep listening. We keep measuring. We wait for the data to finally give up its secret. It hasn't yet. Maybe one day a young scientist will sit down in front of a screen and finally see the missing piece. Maybe the answer will be completely ordinary. Or maybe it will be stranger than any current theory. Either way, the heartbeat is still here. It is here right now as you watch this. It will be here while you sleep tonight. It will be here tomorrow morning when you wake up. Every 26 seconds. The next generation of graduate students will inherit it. And one of them, eventually, will be the person who cracks it open.
There is no rule that says we get to know everything. We share this planet with mysteries that have been thumping under the floor the entire time we've been walking around on top of it. The Earth is not silent. The Earth has never been silent. We just got lucky enough recently to finally start hearing it.